When people betray you, they push you closer into position. They push you to the point where you eventually have no choice but to see the connection for what it is. And ultimately, when you're ready, you'll let it go. And when we let go of the things that are no longer for us, what happens? Yeah, y'all know the rest. We make room for what is for us. Notice I said when you're ready. Let's unpack this a little more.
Let's do this.
It's showtime.
You're listening to the Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast.
These are just my thoughts.
With your host, LaRae Renee.
A woman, her thoughts, and a mic.
Are you ready? Check this out.
Get ready to be poured into. We're going to start these entries off, and I'm going to pour into you guys. I want to pour because that's what I do. I pour, and then I go back and I refill my own cup, right? Because I can't pour into you if I'm not filling my own cup up. But then I come back and I want to pour some more. So before we get this entry started, I'm going to give you guys 3 affirmations today that I want you to take with you. If you don't take anything else from this episode, please take these 3 affirmations with you. Number 1, the love I have for myself increases my capacity to love others. Number 2, I am always headed in the right direction. And affirmation number 3, I don't have to earn my worth. All right? So, you guys, take those with you. Stash them and use them for whenever you need them, right? And remember that you should always affirm yourself. Practicing affirmations. You may or may not have anybody in your life that is able to affirm you in the way that you need to, but nobody can affirm you the way that you can affirm yourself. So on this Self-Care Sunday, I offer you these 3 gems, these affirmations to fill up your cups. And I hope that you cherish them. And I hope that you come back and visit me for the next entry where I'll have 3 more to give. All right. So welcome back, you guys. Welcome back to another entry. This is entry 37 of Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm so happy and I'm so grateful that you decided to spend this little bit of time with me. I hope that you're enjoying that you're going to enjoy this entry on Self-Care Sunday. You may be listening to this after Sunday, which is okay too. Whatever day that you're listening to this at whatever time and wherever you're at in the world, I hope that you're having a good day. I hope that if it didn't start off so great, I hope that it ends on a positive note, and I hope that you get some really good rest and that you're able to sleep off whatever it was that wasn't quite as positive as you wanted it to be. I hope that you're able to sleep that off and start fresh tomorrow. All right, so you guys, this is episode 36, entry 36. I really don't like calling these episodes for some reason. I don't know why I don't like that, but this is entry 36, and this is part 3. This is the wrap up, y'all. We've been doing a series, and if you haven't checked out the other 2 parts to this series, please go back and check it out. Episode, look at me, still talking about episode. Entry 35 and 36. We're talking about changing the narrative. And so we broke it down into 3 parts. We first started off with changing the narrative of our peace, and then we moved into changing the narrative of our success. And now we're going to wrap this thing up and talk about changing the narrative of our relationships. So let's get started. Now, I want to put this disclaimer out, and I want to say this. I am talking to the individual right now that may or may not have had multiple experiences in relationships where it didn't quite turn out the way that they wanted it or the way that they expected it, right? Because we always want connections to people to turn out as positive as we can, but it doesn't always, that's not always what is given. You know, sometimes it's given very much garbage. Sometimes it's given very much waste of time. Sometimes it's given very much toxic. And I mean that for real. I mean that in our relationships. I mean that in our friendships. I mean that in connections in general, right? And so I want this entry to be able to kind of help you to pivot a little bit, maybe change up a couple of things that you're doing or the way that you look at things, the mindset a little bit, just change it up a little bit, right? Because if you want better things or you want different results, sometimes you got to change up what you're doing. Sometimes you have to change the mindset that you have. Sometimes you have to do things that are a little bit different from what you would normally do outside of the comfort zone, right? So when we change the narrative of our relationships, we're doing this because we want to experience something different. We want to experience something that is more fulfilling to us, right? Because like, who wants to be in a connection to somebody and we're not fulfilled? And I mean that in more ways than one. I don't just mean that in one way. I mean like fulfilled mentally, fulfilled emotionally, fulfilled physically, if that's, if that applies. Take this as it applies, you guys. Like, maneuver this the way that you need to maneuver it, because maybe if you're listening to this, you might not be in a relationship right now. Hell, you might not want to be in one, right? Because word on the street is that the dating is trash. Yeah, that's what they're saying out in these streets. I don't know, because I'm not trying to be in it right now. I'm not trying to but so you may not want that, but it doesn't matter if you don't want that right now. Hopefully, maybe later on down the line, you will want it. And if you're taking time to yourself right now, that's wonderful. That's amazing. And if you're tuning into this and you're in a happy relationship, or you have exactly what you need and you are fulfilled in all ways that you need to be fulfilled in the connection that you have, that is amazing. And I love that for you. This might not necessarily be something that speaks to your heart. I hope that you stay, because maybe you'll hear something and you'll think of somebody in your life that might need to listen to this, and you'll share me. You'll pass me along. So stick around, even if you're in a relationship. And again, some of this that I'm going to talk about is not all just intimate relationships. I'm talking about connections to other human beings in general, friendships, however, whenever you're connected. A huge part of it, I'm talking about personal relationships, but just rock with me on this, you guys. I feel like when we get into relationships, we are so ready to just open up our hearts, right? We are ready to open our hearts and allow people to come in, and we do that. And sometimes we do that very easily. And then in other times, we don't do that as easy. We're very guarded and we're very protective of our hearts. And I want to say this. When you guard your heart, that's not a bad thing. And not to get all religious on you, but that is, it's in the word. Like, we're supposed to guard our hearts. We're supposed to protect it with everything. But just to stay kind of neutral here in what I'm speaking about, when you guard your heart, it doesn't mean that I'm telling you to be closed off to the possibility that love will find you, that something meaningful will find you. I'm not telling you to guard it with just like this hard, cold steel door, if you will. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is just to be more mindful and be more aware and be more conscious of how you're opening yourself up to people and what you're allowing, right? You have to have boundaries for yourself. You have to have boundaries for your heart and your emotions, right? Because a relationship can come along and snatch things from us, right? They can snatch our passion. They can snatch our motivation, and they can do all of this because we weren't guarding it the proper way. And we all have this purpose, right? We all have this purpose. And I'm telling you, we can get into some relationships. Sometimes we can connect ourselves to people that will come in and they will snatch those things away from us, as to where we're not even motivated anymore. We go into this dark space in our life because of what we experience in these connections. And the passion that we have for life, the passion that we have for the things that are connected to our purpose, those things are snatched away. They're snatched away because we put so much energy into them. And we do this willingly. We do this because this is what we are naturally used to doing, right? Because we want it so bad. So we open up our hearts, right? But when we allow the wrong connections to come in, and unfortunately, I wish, right? It would be ideal to be able to have someone to come up and approach us, and we just able to be like, see right through them like an X-ray, and be able to tell that this person is not for you. This person does not belong in your life. And so you don't even waste the time, right? But unfortunately, that's not how life works. We don't do that. And sometimes we don't realize that somebody wasn't for us until months later, years later. And at that point, we've already invested so much time and energy. And I speak this from experience. So I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like to pour into something that for years and it wasn't what you thought it was. It wasn't what you needed. Even though it felt like it was, it ultimately wasn't. Everybody is not going to be the right thing, you know? And the sad and scary part about that is that it, like, sometimes you don't see it. And then in hindsight, it's only after the fact that you're like, what the, like, was I really? You start seeing things after the fact. That's when you know you're beginning to, like, heal from that situation. When you really start to see things for what it was, that's when the healing has just like it's just starting to simmer. It's the healing is simmering. And that's when that's how you know you're on the right track, right? But the relationships, they tend to have a power to consume a lot of our energy, and we get in really deep. And we get in deep because we're feeling beings, right? We feel things. And so we get into and we invest into other people deeply because that is what we're supposed to do. You cannot just be this person that doesn't feel things. And so depending on who you are and how you operate in your emotions and how you operate in your relationships, this is what is going to determine sometimes the outcome and the results and the judgment beforehand and the judgment and the discernment during the relationship, during this connection. And I really want to speak to this because it's I say it's scary because I really feel like there is this war. I feel like there is a mental war going on right now, and people are really hurt. People are hurt out there. You may be hurt. You listening to this right now, you may really be hurt. You may know somebody that is really hurt. And sometimes some of those hurt people, they're hurting other people. Isn't that what they say? Hurt people hurt people. They're hurt. They are hurt. And these people, they're hurt, but they're still jumping into relationships and connections with other people because they're trying to fill some sort of void. They have void spaces that they're trying to fill, and they don't want to feel that hurt. They don't want to feel through it. Listen, when you get your heart broken, when you get let down, you got to feel through that thing. You cannot just close it off, because when you try to close off how that feels and you don't try to work through that, however you may need to work through it. I'm not here to try to tell you how to work through it necessarily. I might have a little bit of insight on how you can, but if you try to avoid it, is what my point is. If you try to avoid working through that and feeling through that hurt, and you just try to bottle it up and put it away and go try to jump into something else, not facing and not figuring out yourself and how to get through and how to compartmentalize those different things that you experienced in whatever it was that hurt you and broke you, you're going to jump into another relationship and you're going to inflict pain upon that person that didn't even deserve it. That's what people do. They bring pain to other people because they didn't work through some of the shit that they should have worked through before they got into that relationship. But because we're human beings and we desire to be connected to people, we desire to be in relationships, we just go and we jump and we just think that we're okay. We think that because 6 months passed, we're good. We think that because a year passed, we're good. But what were you doing in that 6 months? What were you doing in that year? What type of work were you doing on yourself before you decided to jump into the next connection, to jump into the next relationship? Because if you weren't doing a damn thing on yourself, if you weren't working on yourself at all, listen, that's going to come out in different ways. It's going to come out in the way that you communicate. It's going to come out in the way that you listen. Because that's a big part too, how you listen to people. It's not just how you deliver your message. It's not just what you're saying. It's also how you're listening to what people are saying to you, or to what your partner is saying. They're expressing things to you, and sometimes you're not even listening. You're hearing them because you hear noise. You have the capability to hear sound. You're not deaf, so you hear noise. So you hear what someone is saying to you, but are you listening? Are you listening to what they're saying? This mental war thing that's going on, I strongly believe people are just out here really unhealed. So these unhealed versions of themselves, they are latching on to the energy of other people, and this is the life is being sucked out of us by these people. This is happening. This is what's happening, and this is what's happening often. And this is why right now we have a mass amount of women who are scared to get in relationships, who have no desire to get into relationships, who just really have a very negative outlook on relationships in general. And I don't like that for them. I don't want us to have been hurt and broken and let down and disappointed and disrespected so bad that we just completely turn off our hearts and our minds and open ourselves up to relationships and love. Because when you have the right thing, when it is the right thing, it is a beautiful thing. When you have a person, a go-to person that loves you, that supports you, that pushes you, that motivates you, that looks at you like they're the very best thing in this world. That is beautiful. Who doesn't want that? Who does not desire to have something like that? And I don't just mean, ladies, when I'm talking, listen, I'm not just talking about the men and what they're doing. I'm talking about us too, because guess what? Sometimes we're taking our baggage and we're going into other relationships, and we're not bringing the best versions of ourselves into relationships. We're not. You got to work through your shit too, sis. And sometimes that is going to require you to take time off completely. Take time off completely from being connected to somebody. Connect with yourself for a minute. And again, I have voiced my opinion on this. Do I think you can ever be 100% healed from something that hurt you before you go into another relationship? No. Do I think that you have to be quote unquote healed before you get into another relationship? No. I don't personally believe that. I don't believe that there is a time frame that one can say or can take. And I think that sometimes, even in the midst of being in a good relationship, you know, like you'll always remember things. You will. So, and that's because there was a scar. You have a scar. There's a scar from what it was that hurt you. And you'll never forget that scar. You know how when you get hurt and I always think about this. You get hurt. And I mean like physically. You get burned, or you get cut or something, right? Somewhere on your body. Maybe you get into an accident, or just something happened and you get hurt. You physically get hurt and you get cut. And when you get cut, you know, you're bleeding and you see it, and you know that immediately that what you need to do is you need to clean that cut up. You need to clean that wound up. So you go and you clean it up. You do whatever you need to do to clean it up. And then you put a little bit of healing cream on it, whatever you use, aloe vera, whatever, whatever you use, whatever you put on your wounds to clean it out, you do that first. To whatever healing cream you have, you put that on there. And then you bandage it up. Right? You bandage it up and then you leave it alone. And you let time heal it. And then every now and then you take that old bandage off and you clean it up again and you bandage it up again. And eventually over time, where that wound was, it will eventually close up and it will heal. But what's left behind? A scar. You have a scar where you were hurt. And then what do you try to do with that scar? Sometimes we try to put like a fading cream on it. We do this regularly. We try to fade the scar away because we just don't want to have that left on our body, that mark on us, right? So we try to fade it away. Or we let time just try to, we may not do anything to it. We just might let it just try to lighten up over time. But sometimes we do things to try to get rid of that scar. And we want to lighten it up. We want to fade it away. But even as time heals, and even as this scar and this wound lightens up, I guarantee you will never forget exactly where that scar was. You will always remember where it was, no matter how light, no matter if it's gone away. You will always remember where that scar was. So are y'all staying with me? No matter how you get hurt, you're always going to remember it and know where and know how that person hurt you. You will forgive, hopefully, if you can. Because remember, forgiveness is for ourselves. It's not for other people. It's for ourselves. We have to forgive people for us, not for them. Even if you don't tell them that you forgive them, you have to understand that in your mind. And you have to make that decision up in your heart that you forgive them for yourself. But that's another episode. But even if you don't, you forgive, but you will never forget. So when we're talking about changing the narrative of our relationships, there's certain things that we may need to consider doing things a little differently from what we have been doing. So I have a couple of things, just a couple of points that I want to set in front of you just for you to think about. I'm going to try to break this down in like maybe 5 different points. And the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to consider what it is that you want, and I want you to be realistic about that. Consider what it is that you want and be realistic about it, because this is how we're going to change the narrative. If we have always been going for a certain type of individual, and things have always turned out in a bad way, maybe we need to reconsider and be a little bit more realistic in our expectations. Hold on before you say, am I telling you to just settle? Absolutely not. I am not telling you to just settle. I am telling you to consider what it is that you want, what it is that you need, and I want you to be realistic about those things so that you are having a mindset of the type of individual that you want to manifest and that you want to be able to come into your life. So when I say be realistic about it, I mean that like maybe if you keep trying to date men that don't even live very close by, that you don't have a whole lot of access with, but yet you want to be able to trust them. Is that going to always be realistic? I don't know if that's... If you keep meeting individuals in a certain atmosphere that you're in, 9 times out of 10, come on, like, we know this stuff. If you keep meeting individuals in a certain type of atmosphere, you have to be understanding and you have to be realistic enough to know that this was just an environment, and sometimes the chances are less in your favor that this is going to be something that you're going to be able to sustain for the long term. Again, this is not the end all be all point that I'm trying to make to you guys. And like I said, take what fits and apply it how you need to apply it. We're grown women. We know, like, you guys understand what I'm saying. This isn't just how it always is, but I'm speaking in reference to just certain experiences that we've had. And I know for a fact that there are some women out there that tend to still frequent the same types of spaces. They want to go to these, lounges and clubs and things, and they want to meet men and meet guys in this particular atmosphere, and it never really works out. Listen, it's time to maybe not meet people in this atmosphere. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that, like, be realistic about what you need and be realistic about what you want, and then, like, compare to what it is that you're actually doing. Like, you got to find the flaws in the plan, sis. If it hasn't been working out, there's like a flaw in the plan. There's some kinks that we need to work through. It's not giving what it needs to give. Okay? Another thing that I want you to do is I want you to set boundaries. Please set boundaries. Set boundaries, especially when you have come out of something and you wasted a lot of time in whatever that was. Going forward, I want you really, that's exactly why we should be taking some time to really reflect on what it was before we just go hop back into something else. We really are supposed to be taking some time because we need to reflect on things, and we need to not have our minds like clouded and our judgment like distorted. We need to be able to reflect on what it was that we were doing and where we had the lack of boundaries, whether that is in the time, whether that is in what you allow at certain periods of the relationship. Set boundaries for yourself. You're a lady, you're a woman, you're a queen. You should have boundaries always, and no one should be able to cross those boundaries. Whatever makes you comfortable, whatever makes sense, whatever is the most respectful of who you are as a woman, set those boundaries and stick to them. You don't always have to, I'm trying to be more mindful of the things that I say. But you don't always gotta, let's that thing open for everybody. You don't always gotta do that, sis. You don't always have to give your body away to everybody that you connect with. Give it time. Give it time. That's sacred. That's special. And you don't always have to go back. You don't always have to go back to something that doesn't work just for physical pleasures. Let's really be real here. Let's really we can talk, right? This is a safe space. We can talk. Because sometimes we'll do that. We'll go back to what we know, what we're comfortable with. We just, because that's just something to do. That's comfort. That's fulfilling a physical desire that we had. And you know what? We keep reintroducing our spirits to this same energy that we've been trying to work out of our lives. But because we get into these moments of where we're like lonely, or we're just feeling a certain type of way physically, we reintroduce ourselves back to this same spirit, this same energy, and we put ourselves back in a cycle that we've been working hard to get out of, or that we consciously say out loud we want to work ourselves out of, but yet we're physically, actually, we're not doing the work. We keep reconnecting with these people, these individuals, this person, this man, this woman, whoever. We keep reconnecting with this person, and we're doing this and we're getting nowhere. How do you want something different when you keep entertaining the same shit? Fellas, if you're listening, same to you. How do you say that you want something different, but you keep doing the same thing? You keep entertaining the same types of men, the same types of women. How are you in desire? How can you actually, being honest with yourself, say that is what you want? You want this love, this certain type of love. You want this fairy tale. You want this perfect love for you. But you ain't changing nothing. You aren't changing anything up. I feel like that comes from loneliness, and I feel like that comes from a sense of desperation. And I'm not calling anybody that's listening to this, or anybody, I'm not calling you desperate, but there's just this desperate need and desire for wanting to have somebody in our life, right? We desire human connection, and we're tired of dating. We're tired of like going through the whole beginning phase and the new phase, and having to meet somebody new and all of that stuff. We're tired of that, but at the same time, like, it's a process. And so that's why I say you gotta realize that you don't always have to, you don't have to entertain everything that comes into your life. It doesn't have to go beyond a certain type of thing. And I really feel like when we decide to start dating, in terms of like dating, let's get the hard questions out on the table first. Let's find the commonalities that we have, or the things that we already know are going to be an issue down the line. Because, see, I feel like we avoid those types of conversations in the beginning because of what we physically see in front of us, what we see on paper, but we're avoiding having the conversations. Listen, it is not crazy. It is not crazy, ladies, when you are dating, to ask a man up front what types of things he wants for the future. Does he want kids? Do you want kids? If you are done having children and you know he wants kids, this is not someone to sit here and waste your time with. This is not someone that you should be starting another relationship with. This is not another person that you should be physically intertwining, soul tying yourself to, if you know that in the end you're not going to be able to, or that you even want to, give this man a child. In terms of long-term, I'm talking about long-term dating. I'm talking to the people who are looking for like long-term stuff. I'm not talking about if you both are on the same page where you don't really want anything serious. Like, I'm not talking to y'all. Y'all stay on the side. I'm talking to the other people. I'm talking to the people that really like want something long-term, that are looking for marriage. And if he's saying he's looking for marriage and a partner, and you're saying you're looking for marriage and a partner, let's talk about the long-term stuff up front. Let's talk about the things that are going to make the relationship harder. Because then what? Then we we connect with someone and everything else was good, but it was just this one or two things that we were off on. But we had fun together. And then 2-3 years later, it's an issue. and then it doesn't work out, and then somebody's left hurt and somebody's left angry and somebody's feeling like they wasted time. But guess what? You knew this from the beginning. You could have known from the beginning had you to ask the right questions. So that is my next point. Listen to what people are saying. Listen to what people are saying and use that. Use that as some of the determination factors on whether or not you should be entertaining this, whether you should be going forward with this. I am so serious about this, you guys. You're going to listen to what people are saying, and then you are going to listen to your gut and your intuition, and you are going to do what is best for you. You know that this person is not going to be the best for you. Stop trying to make those red flags pink and then somehow mix it with something else to make them green. No, they were red as hell from the beginning, sis. You come on. They were red flags. Red flags are just red flags. And they're red flags for a reason. We got to start paying attention to these things, ladies. Stop. We got to stop. We want things so bad. I know. I get it. We want things, but at what expense are we obtaining these things? Because I'm telling you, it's going to take one really bad situation, one really bad experience, and it'll all click at some point. It might not be clicking now, and you might hear this, and it might not even click after this, because, hey, who am I? I'm just trying to pour into you a little bit. I'm just trying to speak to your heart a little bit. That's all. But it's going to make sense for you when it's time to make sense. But really, listen to your gut. Listen to your intuition. But also know when it is not a right time. That's my next point. If you need to take a break from connecting with people and bringing people into your life, this is what you should really be doing. Take a break when and if necessary. And this is in terms of relationships, intimate relationships, and friendships. Sometimes you need to take a break from it all. And when we're talking about friendships and connections to people, and even in relationships, sometimes too, you have to be mindful of that, because guess what? People will use you, right? And when I say people will use you, I mean that people will dump. And I say that because that's what it feels like. People will dump their energy into you sometimes, right? And this is why sometimes you have to take a break from connections to people. Because people will dump what they're feeling, what they're going through, and they will use you as that space to dump that energy into. Whatever it is that they're going through, whatever it is that they're feeling, the frustration that they're feeling, the anger that they're feeling, whatever that negative emotion is that they're having, sometimes they will come to you and they will use you as the space where they dump all of that mess into, right? And sometimes they do this because you have already allowed them to do it. So they're used to it. They're comfortable with doing that. Because sometimes we just try to we want to be there for people. And so people feel like that, because, they have been able to come to you and to just vent all of this wasteful energy and this wasteful frustration into you. You were the safe space for them. And they come at you And you hear that, like when you have you ever just had somebody and they're talking to you and they're angry and they're talking about something that they've gone through, that they've dealt with, they you can hear just this anger in their voice and just this really intense passion when they're speaking. And you hear that and you feel it. And the reason why it's as intense as it is when they're speaking it to you, even though you may not have anything to do with it, but they're just coming to you to vent to you. The reason why you feel that and it's so intense is because I guarantee you they probably haven't been able to release that. Whatever it is that they're feeling, that they're thinking, they might not have been able to even say that to wherever this anger and this frustration is directed to. They probably haven't even been able to say that to that person, but they come to you. They come to you and they release it on you. And that's why you feel that. And that's why you can hear that intensity in their voice when they're talking about it. So they either haven't been able to or they're not going to, but they still need to get it out. And in actuality, they need to be talking to a damn therapist, but you're the therapist. And you ain't even know it. Sometimes you do know it because you allow it. But when you're allowing people to come to you because you are the quote unquote strong one, when you're allowing people to come to you and unload that on you, what space are you in? Yeah. What space are you in when people are coming? Listen, normalize telling people not today. Yeah, normalize people telling people not today. I can't do it today. A real friend will tell you that they cannot take it today, and a real friend will accept that. And can we normalize asking first? Let's normalize asking people, can we vent? I stand by that. I've said that before. Ask people first. Is it a good day? Hey sis, is it a good day to talk to you about what baby father did? Because she might just, and be okay with saying, you know what, sis, I can't today. I don't even have the mental capacity to take that in today. I'm sorry that you're dealing with that, but I can't even today. Normalize telling people this, and this goes back to your setting your boundaries. You know, sometimes people try to talk to me about different things that are just going on in the world and different things that they've heard. And you know what? Sometimes it's been so draining on what I'm already seeing on my social media. Sometimes I just tell people, like, I can't even talk about that today. Listen, boundaries, ladies, boundaries. Did we decide on what our word of the year was going to be? Can it be? No, because I think could it be boundaries? Are we setting boundaries this year? The word of the year. Listen, we might need a few words for the 2024 year, but boundaries definitely needs to be top 5. But again, when that one, as far as taking a break from people, like I said, that is connected to setting your boundaries. Make sure that you're in a space where you are able to receive certain things from certain people. But just in terms of like being connected to people and starting relationships, just make sure that, like, you know, that you've taken that time to yourself. Get your mind right. Get yourself back together. Make sure that you feel good about yourself. Make sure that you know that you are worthy of the greatest love ever. Make sure that you feel good about yourself physically. Make sure that you feel good about yourself emotionally and mentally. Feel good. Work on those things. Self-Care Sunday is a thing. Utilize it. Or whatever day. Maybe, I don't know, if you have to work on Sunday, please prioritize a day where it's all about self-care and it's all about pouring into yourself. But make sure that you feel good, because if you don't feel worthy, if you don't feel good about yourself and you're going into a relationship, guess what? You're going to let any damn thing fly. because you just want to be up in something with somebody. You're just gonna let anything be okay, even when it's not okay. And I hate that for you. I hate that for us as women. Fellas, if you're listening, I hate that for you too. Listen, I tell guys that are I'm just thinking about some of my mutuals, but I always tell guys that inquire about my podcast, and they, oh, what's it about? I want to listen, and I want to support you, and I love that. I love when men want to support my podcast, and I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, listen, you can listen, because you know what, the stuff that I talk about and what I share from my heart, men can take it too. But I always tell them, come in and be quiet, sit down, don't touch nothing. But fellas, if you're listening right now, this applies to you too. Same thing. Make sure that you're just in a proper space. That you're in a proper space to be able to nurture a relationship. And if you're not, then don't get in one. Don't attach yourself to someone. And especially don't attach yourself to someone that you know is really like looking for something real and wants to be connected to someone real. Like if you see the wavelength that she is on, ladies, if you see the wavelength that this man is on, if you're not on that same wavelength, leave him alone. Leave her alone. Don't bother her. Don't go over there bothering her. Leave her alone. Leave him alone. Don't mess up that vibe if you're not ready for it. And we know from the beginning what we're ready for and what we're not ready for. We know, come on, y'all know. I don't care what you say. You know what you're ready for. And you know that when you meet people and you connect with people and you see what they got going on, that's not even something that you need to even, don't even step foot close over there. You're not ready for that. If you're not ready for that, leave it alone. I'm just saying. Another point that I wanted to talk about was enjoying the process. Listen, dating and getting to know people doesn't always have to be just this end all be all serious thing. It is a process. Dating is a process. We're trying to figure out whether or not something might work, whether or not something has a potential. Doesn't mean we have to always stay in that connection. Doesn't mean we have to draw that connection out. Enjoy the process. I'm going to tell you guys, I had this one interaction with this gentleman, and it was the exchange that we had was so healthy. It made me so happy. And it didn't work. But you know what? In the first conversation, we figured that out. So just a short story time. So I was at a coffee house and I was sitting down and I was just doing some work on my laptop, sipping on my little tea. And a gentleman was in there, and he was in there working at the same time. And I think we ended up going to so there's a little bar area where you go and you just you freely get some of the little things that you might need for your drinks and things. And we were over there at the same time, or ended up being at that area at the same time. And somehow or another, we were laughing about something. I don't remember exactly what it was. Something that had to do with the area. And so we laughed about it or whatever. And it was very friendly. And it was just a little joke. And then we went back to our respective tables. And then later on, this gentleman came up and approached me at the table I was sitting at. And he was like, I was just wondering if I can come over and chat with you for a few minutes. And I thought that the approach, it was very calm, and he asked, and we had already exchanged friendly words, and I was at a stopping point in the work that I was doing. So I was like, yeah, why not? I was like, sure. And we were sitting there and we were talking and we were talking and talking and talking and talking, and it was flowing. It was cool. We, asked questions, and we, we laughed, we joked, we shared a couple of different, little situations and little stories of things about dating past and things like that. And then I guess to me, we even kind of labeled it. It was like, oh, this is kind of like a little this is giving first date vibes at this point. After that first hour, it was like, this is okay, that we have transitioned into first date territory. And so we're just talking or whatever. And then like we were asking like, questions like about long term, and the approach that this gentleman had, like the questions that he was asking, I was so impressed. I was impressed because the questions that he was asking, they were like solid questions. They had a point. They had a purpose. They were useful. Don't be out here asking people what their favorite color is and what movie they like to watch. Don't be asking that on first date. Go deeper. Go a little bit deeper. I liked that. That in itself to me was attractive. So he was asking questions. I was asking questions. We were talking about things that we wanted. This gentleman shared with me that he's looking for a certain type of relationship, and some of the things that he is looking for the woman to be able to do within the next year didn't align with things that I wanted to do or that I would be willing to do in the next year. Right? And we came across that in having conversation and asking questions. And so in discovering that, despite how well the exchange went, it was personally something that wasn't going to work for me, and it was personally something that wasn't going to work for him. And in terms of the long term, it just wasn't going to align. And we started figuring that out. Even beyond that little tidbit of information, we just started figuring more and more things out. And our ideas of the things that we wanted for the future, they just didn't align. And so, he was like, you know what? Because I said, well, you know what? I'm like, I don't think that, like, do you think that with all of the, the indifferences that we've come across, like, do you think that that is going to align well for because you've expressed to me that you want a relationship, and I've expressed to you that I would be open to a relationship, but do you think that like these things are going to align for us to where we'll really have like a successful start of a relationship? And he was like, you know what? I really don't have, I'm kind of indifferent either way. So in other words, he was basically saying that like he knew that it probably wasn't going to be the best alignment. And low key, he was also kind of saying that he would still, that he would still probably be willing to like spend more time in this connection, but that like he said, I completely understand why you would feel like it's a waste of your time, and so I respect that. And so even though the vibe was cool, we obviously found each other attractive, it just didn't align for the long term, right? And so we both just felt like, okay, it was nice, but this isn't it. And I'm just not willing to partake or spend any time in connections that I feel like are not going to be something that turns into a long-term thing. Like, that's just not the space that I'm at. And then, this gentleman actually ended up covering everything that I had ordered that day. We said it was nice to meet you. We said our goodbyes. We didn't exchange numbers or any type of social media information or anything like that, because there's no need to try to spin the block over here. So we didn't do any of that, and that was that. And listen, it was fun. It was a moment. I enjoyed it. I got to have some conversation, some dialogue, and that's it. That's what it was. But that wasn't it. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, let's just be realistic. Let's have boundaries and know that when we're not going to, we're not going to sacrifice on our boundaries, what we want and what we do not want, what we need and what we don't need. Let's be clear. Let's stick to that. And enjoy the process. I enjoyed that time that I spent with this gentleman. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I will remember that for a long time to come, because it was a moment in time that made me extremely happy. It was a good spirited conversation, but it didn't go anywhere after that. And I'm okay with that. So enjoy the process and discover new parts of yourself. Discover some of the things that you like. Dating doesn't have to be the end all. It is about just finding. That's all. And in the meantime, my last idea, and then I'm going to let y'all go. The last idea is to be proactive about bettering yourself and all your shortcomings. So in other words, in the midst of all of this, make sure that you are working on you. I said that earlier. Work on your own shit. Continue to work on yourself. Continue to better yourself. Continue to make sure that you are always trying to show up as the best version of yourself. And know that you will only improve. It will get better. Because you can be one version of yourself this year, and next year, you know what? You might be a totally different woman. You may have shed a layer of skin that you no longer need, and you feel different. You think about things different. Your mindset has changed. And that's a good thing. Continue to work on bettering yourself. Continue that. Because we want to connect to something that's healthy. But we can't always just sit here and expect that the other person needs to come in healthy and think that we always got our own shit together and there's nothing that we need to work on. We always need to work on ourselves. There's always something that we could be doing to better ourselves. There's always something. You got something. I got something. I got some things that I can continue to nurture and that I can continue to mold to be a little smoother. I know that about myself. I'm aware of that. I have the self-awareness that I need. But I also know that I am worthy. I also know that I am a beautiful, spirited individual. I also know how I care for other people, and I also know how I expect it to be cared for. I want to be handled in a certain type of way. I want to be handled with care. You should be handled with care. Okay? So, I think I'm going to wrap this up. Y'all don't kill me for keeping y'all here for an hour. Oh my gosh. How the third well, we're wrapping it up, so yeah, let me give you guys some closing thoughts. I saw a quote. And the quote stated that you don't develop courage by being happy in your relationships every day. You develop it by surviving difficult times and challenging adversity. So while I understand the context and the weight of that quote, I want to tell you this. Surviving difficult times and challenging adversity is just what it is, but it doesn't mean that you have to endure things longer than what you want to endure them, longer than you deserve to endure them. Your worth is so precious. Surviving difficulties, yeah, challenges may come in relationships, but some challenges are things that you don't even have to deal with. You don't deserve it. So make sure that you value yourself enough to know what is something that you should be surviving and getting through and working through, and what is something that you should just be releasing. I love you. And until next time, you guys, peace and blessings.
You're listening to the Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast
These are just my thoughts.
with your host, LaRae Renee.